Hello everybody and welcome back to Nerdy Miniatures, and in today's video we'll be painting the mighty Durthu, but of course in our cherry blossom theme. This video will be broken down to different stages and these will be indicated by the timestamps, so let's get into the video. So to start, I sprayed the figure using grey Seer spray paint. I did 2 coats of this as there are many spots that I could have missed if I didn't do this. Once it dried, it was time to start painting. So using the shade Dryad Bark and some water, I painted this across the entire figure. This took me about half an hour to do and would have been a lot easier and a lot quicker with an airbrush, but I made do with what I had. Once that dried, it was time to start to dry brush the figure. I did this using the shade Raarth Flesh. I wanted this to be quite heavy at first, just to add some brightness. I went in with the same colour on his eyes to make sure the bright colours that I would add later would really pop. I did also add Corax White to the eyes as well. Of course, as this guy is a tree, it was time to add some green as well. So, using the same dry brushing technique, I went over the top of the highlighted areas with Elysian Green to emphasise the tree look of this figure. Now it was time to move on to the leaves. For this I used the shade Waagh Flesh to create a level of dimension between the green shades. Off camera I also went back in with Raarth Flesh over all the skulls, ready to darken them up later. Now it was time to start adding the pink colours to this figure. Starting with the eye, I went in with the colour Doomfire Magenta and used a small brush to add it to the eye. I ended up doing 3 layers of this to really make the eye as bright as possible. Added the same colour to the mushrooms that are growing off of his chest and arm also. Next, I went in with Moot Green, the same vibrant green that I used for my branch witch, to fill all the swirls and cracks in the figure to make it look more magical. Time to add pink to the tips of the branches. To do this, I used the colour Screamer Pink on the fronts and backs of the leaves. This was quite dark at first, but if anything it made quite a subtle transition into the colour, but I would add a second coat later just to make it more vibrant. Now it was time to start on his weapon, the blade. For this, I laid a base coat of blue horror, a very light blue white colour on the front and back of the blade. Once that dried, I went in with a more vibrant shade of blue called Lothern Blue to stipple colour onto the handle of the blade as well as the tip of the blade also. Now it was time to give Durthu a manicure, as on one hand he has some ferocious claws. To do this, I went back in with the colour Doomfire Magenta and painted each claw individually to ensure they were all properly coated. Finishing off the skulls, for this I went in with the aptly named shade Skeleton Horde to lightly coat each decorative skull to give them an aged look, as we don't really know how old this creature is. Happy with the figure, it was time to move on to the base. For this, I used the colour Astrogranite for the rock that he stood on, and off camera, I used Stirland Mud for the rest of the base. Just like with my branch witch, I used UV resin and fake pollen and flowers to decorate, sticking loose pieces onto the figure before adding more to the base. I ended up finishing off the base off camera. This was unintentional, I just forgot to hit record, my apologies. I did this using fake grass and gravel, and that was it for the mighty Durthu, all finished. So far, I think this figure is my favourite mini that I have done. I had so much fun putting it together, and it makes me look forward to finishing off the rest of my Sylvaneth Spearhead army. Speaking of that, coming next, we'll be painting my Kurnoth Hunters, so if you want to see how they turn out, then subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on that content. In the description, you will find 2 links. The first to Mr. Nerd's channel, so if you enjoy MMOs and action RPGs, then please feel free to check that out. And if you enjoy fantasy lore, then please feel free to check out my channel if you have any interest in Tolkien, Game of Thrones, Warhammer, and The Witcher. Anyway, that'll be it from me today. Hope you guys have a wonderful day or night, wherever you are in the world. And as always, peace out.